Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at APIs and using those inside of jQuery. And APIs stand for Application Programming Interface. So it is a way for us to communicate with a service from our own application. And so in this case, we're going to be taking a look at the GitHub Developer API. We've been using GitHub for our code, so now we can actually reach into GitHub and pull data out of it. So here are the docs for GitHub. If you search for GitHub API, this is pretty much the first result. But let's go ahead and come over to this tab and take a look at what we're going to be building. So most APIs do require that you have some way of logging in to prove who you are. We're going to be using a few public endpoints that we don't have to actually have any authentication or login mechanism to make them work. So the project that we have here allows you to enter a GitHub username and hit search. And what this will do is it'll actually go to GitHub and pull out all of this information. So this is my GitHub app user, photo, name, location, a link to the GitHub, link to my blog, and then all of my public projects. And if I go pull up one of our TAs here, you'll see now Chris Baker's information shows up and all of his projects. So if we go back to my own profile, hit search, hit GitHub, you'll see that the projects here under the public branch are the same ones that show up in my list of projects. And here is my information. So most of this information that we see here is going to be accessible to us through the API. So we've already talked about what APIs are in our in-person lecture, but what we can see here in our API documentation is a list of methods that allow us to get information or put information into GitHub. And so in this case, we have the ability to get a single user. And this is actually what we're going to be using for the project. So if we do get /users/username and replace username with whatever GitHub username we want, so in my case, Colin Loretz, then we will get back all of this information. And if you look closely at it, this is something that we've seen before in JavaScript. So this is JSON, and JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And what we can do with this is that we can easily transform it into a JavaScript object once we grab this from GitHub and then use these different keys to access the values that are inside of them. There are a few other things to think about. Like I said, there are almost always going to be some form of login or authentication, an API key, but we're not going to have one in this case. And you do see here that there is a rate limit. So again, if you're using an API key, there's only so many times that you can call this API and still be a good web citizen. And so let's keep on going. We can take a look at all these different options that are down here, getting a list of all users. So not all of these will work unless you are logged in. But I know that this one will work. If we go into repositories, so repositories would be where we go look for how our projects are stored in GitHub. And I know that list user repositories will also work without an API key. So what this will do is show us a list of public projects, and again we'll replace username with the user's name. And in our example here, we're asking the user for a name. So this name will actually be replaced in here, and we will make a call to this URL. And so right now this is only showing us a partial URL, /user/repos. If we go ahead and look at the overview here, we can go ahead and click on root endpoint, and you'll see that the API is available to us at api.github.com. And so that means that we're essentially going to be building up a URL such as this, /users/Colin Loretz. And if we were to hit this URL, we should get JSON back, and there you go. So you can actually try this out with your own username here, and you'll see that this JSON is going to be what our code actually goes out and requires. So this URL will actually be used inside of our code.